Our top story today is the bushfire emergency unfolding across the state. More than 90 fires are burning right now, a staggering 14 at emergency watch level, something that has not been seen before.
As you say, this is unprecedented stuff. 96 active fire zones around the state at the moment, and I'm being told by RFS that they're jumping up the number of emergency level fires to 16 now, and as you say, that is unprecedented.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And since that report on the New South Wales bushfires 2 weeks ago, Australia's fire emergency has spread to 5 states and destroyed more than 630 homes. And in the meantime, our political leaders have been doing their best to avoid addressing the role of climate change in making those bushfires more severe.
My only thoughts today are with those who've lost their lives.
I certainly don't think it's appropriate to get into a political argument.
And I'll tell you this, I'm not going to cop it. And if that's the rest of this interview, well, you've lost me for the morning.
But 11 days ago, after 4 people died in those New South Wales fires, former fire chiefs of Queensland, Victoria and Tasmania tackled the issue head-on.
So there's something going on, and certainly climate change is exacerbating the very, very dry conditions that we're all experiencing. Bushfires are a symptom of climate change.
I've had 39 years of Tasmanian Fire Service and I didn't see too many dry lightning strikes earlier on in my career. But now, and due to climate change, we're seeing this as a regular event.
But leading the charge was a former New South Wales fire boss, Greg Mullins, who said in multiple interviews that a warmer climate was making it harder to fight our bushfires and reducing our ability to prepare for them.
Look, it's very clear, and any fire service will tell you that the windows for hazard reduction through the winter are getting narrower and narrower. Now, a slight lift in temperature overall, average temperature, means the extremes are more extreme. The scientists are very clear, their numbers are very clear, more days of very high fire danger and above.
But some powerful media commentators are convinced that they know better, like shock jock Alan Jones in this full-page column in News Corp's Daily Telegraph.
The ABC were at it again last week, fawning over 23 former fire and emergency leaders who commented outside their area of expertise about an alleged relationship between bushfires and climate change.
And that was just the start of it, because Jones was also assuring readers
it is worth asking how the non-expert views of such people are even newsworthy.
Yep, according to Jones, 23 former fire and emergency chiefs are not worth listening to when it comes to bushfires. Unlike him, who's paid millions of dollars to tell us on repeat that man-made global warming is a hoax. But Jones is not the only one to rubbish or ignore the fire chief's warning. 2GB's news bulletins that day barely gave them a mention, even as the station's talk show hosts, like Ray Hadley, had a crack at Fireman Mullins with barbs like this.
He's not an economist, and that's quite evident by his rantings just at the moment, Greg Mullins.
And 2GB's Steve Price was even more scathing.
Greg Mullins reckons he had a crystal ball, that he wanted to warn the government about what was coming. But if you listen carefully to his words, you find his real game here, climate change. He's now a fully fledged member of the Climate Change Hysteria Brigade.
Price's guest, Peter Gleeson, who's employed as a commentator by Sky and the Courier-Mail to tell us what's what, also got into Mullins, a firefighter with 39 years' experience, to declare
he's joined a cult, he's been brainwashed.
And predictably, several other News Corp columnists and TV hosts were singing from the same song sheet, either attacking Mullins and his fellow chiefs, or denying that climate change is making the bushfires worse, or claiming that increased Australian action to fight global warming is pointless.
Climate change isn't the cause of these bushfires, but there's no doubt, and I'm not alone here, that 2 decades plus of climate change activism is making them worse.
The bushfire and climate change debate. It's dumb, it's reckless, it's offensive, we know that, but the Greens and others, so many cheerleaders in the media, are still doubling down on this stuff.
There are, for instance, the retired fire chiefs today who actually claimed, forget blaming the fierceness of the fires on the fact that not enough burning off was done to keep fuel levels in the bush under control. No. The real problem, it seems, was that the Morrison government hadn't magically turned down the world's temperature by cutting Australia's tiny emissions.
And in the Herald Sun, veteran business columnist Terry McCrann went even further by accusing the non-News Corp media of, quote, dishonesty, distortion and hysteria.
It has been unremitting, unrelenting, wall-to-wall coverage. The fact none of these bushfires were in any way extraordinary compared to not just the last 50 years, but indeed the last 150 years, was an inconvenient truth.
So, what is the truth? And is it actually inconvenient for all those know-it-alls? Well, it's certainly true that fires have devastated Australia since time began. But the CSIRO, the Bureau of Meteorology, fire chiefs and climate scientists all tell us the fires are getting worse. The season's growing longer, the fires are more extreme, and what's really unprecedented is so many are burning at the same time.
Never before have we had 17 concurrent emergency warning fires burning at once, all competing desperately for resources, desperately for support, desperately for assistance. The reality is we simply couldn't get to every individual.
Last Thursday, the ABC was running emergency broadcasts for fires in South Australia, Victoria, Tasmania, New South Wales and Queensland, and we're told that's a record. But what's unfolding now is what we've all been warned of for years. In 2007, the ABC reported on research from the CSIRO and Bureau of Meteorology, which predicted
within the next 12 years, the number of extreme days of fire danger, that's the highest risk rating, could grow by more than 60%.
And 3 years before that, in 2004, the National Inquiry on Bushfire Management had warned state and federal governments that fires would become larger and more intense as rainfall patterns changed.
The projected hotter, drier, windier conditions associated with climate change caused by greenhouse warming would extend the period of fuel drying and increase rates of fire spread.
And the latest advice from the CSIRO, updated this month, confirms that's already happening and will get worse.
Over recent decades, we've seen an increase in the frequency and severity of fire weather in Australia. We predict that many regions will see a significant increase in the probability of the highest levels of fire danger in the years ahead.
And to cap it all, according to Professor Ross Bradstock from Wollongong University's Bushfire Research Centre, it's all coming faster than expected.
These unprecedented fires are an indication that a much-feared future under climate change may have arrived earlier than predicted.
So, will this make any difference to the doubters and denialists? Almost certainly not. If they can call the media's acceptance of expert opinion dishonest, reckless and offensive, it's likely no amount of science or fires or drought will ever make them change their tune. So, what does the man who employs so many of these crusaders against the science have to say? Last week at News Corp's AGM in New York, a proxy for Australian shareholder activist Stephen Mayne asked Rupert Murdoch this question.
If you do believe in climate change, Mr Mayne is interested to hear why News Corp gives climate deniers like Andrew Bolt and Terry McCran so much airtime in Australia.
And after detailing a 25% reduction in the company's carbon footprint, Rupert replied,
"There are no climate change deniers around, I can assure you."
Rupert Murdoch is renowned for knowing exactly what his papers and commentators are saying all across the world. Seems he's also adept at claiming black is white. Because denial is what News Corp's campaign against the facts and the experts on climate change amounts to. And 2 days after Rupert spoke came another example from Ian Plimer in The Australian, urging us not to pollute minds with carbon fears, telling us,
"There are no carbon emissions. If there were, we could not see because most carbon is black."
Hard to believe, isn't it? And while we're on the subject of climate change and the media, here's another example of a News Corp masthead losing its cool.
It's been revealed anti-Adani protesters, originally slapped with hefty fines, have had them reduced by tens of thousands of dollars on appeal. One judge not only slashed a single fine by 90%, but then also ordered police to pay the protesters legal costs.
Yes, those anti-Adani protesters in Queensland are getting away with a slap on the wrist. And who's to blame for the scandal? Well, according to this front-page exclusive in the Courier-Mail, it is the judiciary.
Judge and fury.
Courts watering down sentences handed to extremists.
Judges are dramatically reducing the fines of anti-Adani activists by thousands of dollars on appeal and have even ordered police to pay the legal costs of protesters.
That front-page blast was backed by an angry editorial, which launched an extraordinary political attack on the sentencing judges.
It's troubling that this leftist agenda is also on display in sections of the Queensland judiciary. The inability of some members of the judiciary to understand community expectations, those Scott Morrison calls the quiet Australians, is alarming.
The Courier-Mail's attack fired up some angry debate, starting with Queensland's Deputy Opposition Leader, Tim Mander, who told 9 News,
I think it's wrong that it cost the taxpayer millions of dollars to look after these protesters, and they get away with a paltry fine.
And before long, with Talkback Radio firing up, the Courier-Mail was back for more, with Sky News and Mail commentator Peter Gleeson, again, now holding the pitchfork.
The community is sick and tired of soft sentencing by leftist judges. The way in which Extinction Rebellion ratbags have been given slaps on the wrist, free to go out and do it again, is a prescient example of how judicial officers are out of touch with public sentiment. In my view, the principles of socialism are alive and well among some of our judicial leaders.
So, was it really the judge's leftist bias that led to the fines being slashed? Short answer, no. It was the rules of sentencing, which the court is obliged to obey. And this week, the Judicial Conference of Australia, which represents magistrates and judges, hit back with a blistering response. Describing Gleeson's column as, quote, vituperative and lacking in any rational discussion and analysis, Justice Judith Kelly told the media,
"It is most unfortunate when journalists fire off intemperate criticism of judicial decisions, which extends to personal abuse, apparently without troubling themselves to read the decisions in question. Reasons are written to inform the public of the basis upon which judgments are made, and the public relies heavily on the press to keep it informed. The Peter Gleeson article fails even to attempt to inform."
And what was News Corp's response? A spokesperson told us,
"Like any public institution in Australia, court decisions are subject to scrutiny, debate and a variety of opinions, even if those being debated don't like or disagree with the opinions being expressed."
And they're right, of course. Court decisions should be subject to scrutiny, and the media has every right to be doing it. But not if it descends into ridicule and ignores the facts. As Justice Kelly said in her statement,
"Articles like this portray the vital role the media has in encouraging informed and constructive debate."
Hard to disagree. But the Courier-Mail was not the only one to receive a legal shellacking last week. Nine's 60 Minutes copped a beating too. First by being ordered to pay around $2.5 million in damages to Queensland's Wagner family for accusing them of causing the deaths of 12 people in the Grantham floods, and second in a scathing attack on their journalism. Justice Applegarth called Nine's conduct unjustifiable and improper and found the network had been, quote,
recklessly indifferent to the truth or falsity of the imputations.
Not least because Nine had possessed, but not broadcast, information contradicting the allegations it was making. One of 60 Minutes interviewees, Nick Cater, a former editor of the Weekend Australian, was also ordered to pay damages of more than $1.2 million for blaming the Wagners.
It was man-made intervention. This was no act of God.
And he too came in for a whacking from the judge, who found
Mr. Cater did not contact any of the Wagners about the allegations he made and disregarded Mr. Besley's evidence, which undermined his theory.
Mr. Besley being an eyewitness whom Cater had interviewed. It's worth remembering the Spectator were also sued for this Cater article on the floods and agreed to pay $573,000 in damages. And last year, Alan Jones was also found guilty of defaming the Wagners and ordered to pay $3.7 million in damages. So, as you can see, it is an expensive business when the media ignores inconvenient truths or makes accusations that cannot be supported. Unless, of course, it's merely about the planet, when you can clearly say whatever you like. And finally tonight, to a good old-fashioned stuff-up and a beauty spot that was anything but beautiful. Here's an advertisement that ran on Nova FM in Adelaide one afternoon a fortnight ago. Listen carefully or block your ears. There is some ugly language.
Check out these local gigs, deals and events around Adelaide.
Get your kids' ears pierced at Essential Beauty now for just $42.95. Mutilate those little cunts beyond recognition with double operators and minimum fuss. Book at essentialbeauty.com.au.
Yes, it's a shocker. They really said that. Now, you won't be surprised to hear that was not what national beauty salon chain Essential Beauty had in mind when it decided to advertise on Adelaide's most popular radio station. CEO Matthew Katalinic told us he's
very disappointed with the actions of Nova and its staff, which resulted in the airing of an unauthorised advertisement. Essential Beauty would like to apologise to any listeners who may have been offended.
So, how did the company's message get so, mutilated? Well, it was all a nasty case of human error. The station wasn't pointing fingers, but told us in a statement.
Nova sincerely apologises for this offensive advertisement. This is inexcusable, and we have taken urgent and serious action to find out how it happened and ensure it cannot happen again.
So, rest assured, the next time you hear ads for Essential Beauty, they won't sound like that. And you can bet the company won't be paying for them for some time to come. And that's all from us tonight. And don't forget Media Bites on your favourite social media platform every Thursday. But for now, until next week, goodbye.